Spider-Man Brand New Day releases in cinemas later this week, and ahead of this release I wanted to go ahead and rewatch every single Spider-Man movie that came out before it. And after finishing No Way Home, I went ahead and re-ranked a lot of these movies, and I realized that a lot of my opinions have changed pretty drastically since I last did this. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking all 10 Spider-Man movies ahead of the Brand New Day release. This is the 3 Tobey Maguire movies, the 2 Andrew Garfields, the 3 Tom Hollands, and the 2 Spider-Verse movies. Roughly this time next year, we will have technically 2 additions to this list. We'll have Brand New Day after I've watched it, and Beyond the Spider-Verse as well. So I might revisit this in the future when Beyond the Spider-Verse releases. I'm anticipating that that movie is going to make the Spider-Verse trilogy the best in the franchise, to kind of tease this tier list, I guess. But after I've watched Brand New Day, which is going to be this Friday, I'm going to be reviewing this movie here on the channel, and that video will be going out on Saturday. So if you don't want to miss that video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video if you enjoy this video as well, and let me know down in the comments what you guys think of my rankings. Am I an idiot? Do you agree with me? But with all that out of the way, we are going to get into the rankings. Now, I do want to say, I've done this a little differently to a lot of people. I actually split my Spider-Man rankings into 2 tier lists. So I have my opinion-based tier list, which is purely how I feel about the movies, how much I enjoy the movies. And then I have my objective tier list, and these are surprisingly very different. I think the objective tier list will align with a lot more people's popular opinions, but the opinion-based tier list is very much how I feel about them. So a lot of these rankings that I'm going to be talking about, I know they're wrong. You don't need to go down in the comments and be like, oh, but this movie, yeah. You don't need to do that. Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man movie released a couple months after I did. So I've been watching these movies since I spawned in. I know everything about these movies, okay? I've rewatched these things thousands of times. I know how wrong some of these opinions are. I know how right some of these opinions are. But at the end of the day, it's opinions. So if you don't like it, you can leave an angry comment down below, but it's not going to change my opinion. I'm not going to be able to change yours. So yeah, let's get into it. We're going to start off with the opinion-based ranking. We're going to start from the bottom, work our way up, and then we'll get into the objective one. I'll have chapters on the video, so if you want to go to the objective one, you can do that. In 10th place, the worst Spider-Man movie, in my opinion, is Spider-Man Far From Home. And I just want to say as well that the gap between Far From Home and number 9 is pretty drastic. Like, the thing is, I love every single Spider-Man movie, right? I would never scoff at the idea of watching any of these movies, especially Far From Home. But the gap between 9th place and Far From Home for me is pretty large, and I'm going to explain why. The best way I can sum it up is I think Far From Home is the most detached Spider-Man movie from the Spider-Man DNA and identity. You know, this doesn't take place in New York, it's all across Europe, which is strike number 1. Strike number 2, he takes his mask off almost all the fucking time. Half the people in the movie know who Spider-Man is. Yeah, MJ figures it out, sure, but he's taking that thing off every 10 seconds. Like, this whole secret identity thing is just non-existent here. And you could argue the same with No Way Home, but that's different. Mysterio reveals his identity in this video. That's not the same thing. Number 3, the whole Nick Fury, Maria Hill, Mysterio being an antagonist of Iron Man involvement make this more of an MCU movie than a Spider-Man movie, if that makes sense. It's all about the MCU characters, and Spider-Man, I feel like he's just here to react to what's happening in the MCU, if that makes sense. Like, Tony Stark obviously dying. And I just feel like all the MCU-ness of the Spider-Man Tom Holland movies, it got the worst in this one. It's by far the most detached Spider-Man movie. I mean, we don't even see Spider-Man swinging in Manhattan until the final, like, 2 minutes of the movie. And I know a lot of people who probably watch Spider-Man very casually are like, oh, who cares about that? It really affects the feeling of a Spider-Man movie, trust me. And this is kind of a broader issue with the Home trilogy of Tom Holland, but I just don't like the fact that he's still a school kid. He spends the entire trilogy in school. I mean, by Tobey Maguire's first movie, he's already out of school, he's graduated, and he's looking for a job by the second act of the film. And it's something that we're still dealing with in Spider-Man Brand New Day. I mean, they're just about to graduate college or university, whatever it is, MIT. I don't remember if he went to MIT in Brand New Day, forgive me. I just feel like this is the least Spider-Man movie that's ever been made. It just is so far detached from what Spider-Man is supposed to be. That's really about it. That being said, there are plus sides. I love Mysterio's portrayal by Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie. I love how they kind of ground his abilities, so it's not magic based, it's very much technology based. It's a shame it's very closely linked to Tony Stark. However, I do like the way they portray his abilities, and that one scene where, you know, just before Tom Holland gets hit by the train, I think that is an incredible showcase of Mysterio's abilities. In the number 9 spot, we have the first movie in the Home trilogy, and that is Homecoming. This is where we go from me liking Spider-Man movies to loving them, because I do love Homecoming. I think it's a really great movie. Again, it has some of the issues that Far From Home has, just on a lesser scale. For example, once again, it's very MCU-ified, and I know that's kind of what a lot of people wanted to see at the time, was Spider-Man in the MCU, but I just think that a lot of the best Spider-Man movies are where it's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man with his villains, with his side characters, and that's it. In this movie, there's obviously the big involvement of Tony Stark, because he's his mentor. It's not as egregious as, you know, the Nick Fury and Tony Stark involvement in Far From Home. It makes a lot of sense here. That's really all I can say that's bad about Homecoming, really. It doesn't strike a chord with me like a lot of the Spider-Man movies we have higher up in the list. It's a very fun movie. It's a very good origin for Spider-Man in the MCU. I will say, one thing that I don't like about the Home trilogy as well, which is very much a Jon Watts issue, is I'm not a huge fan of his directing. I mean, there's a lot of shots in these 3 movies that look fantastic and they're very creative, but it feels like that's about 10% of each of these movies. When I was rewatching No Way Home, I got this feeling especially. I think that's the most visually creative and distinct of the Home trilogy, but again, there's a lot of shots in that, and it's not just because it was during lockdown and it's green screen and, you know, all those issues, but there are a lot of moments with Jon Watts where it looks like a movie. You know, it doesn't really feel unique. It doesn't really feel like he has a unique directing style. It's very much just like movie.mp4 a lot of the times. Once again, the villain of Homecoming, the Vulture, I love him. I really, really love him. It's such a shame he got kidnapped into the Sony bullshit Morbius universe, because he was such a fantastic villain in this film. I adored him, and that twist where he's revealed to be Liz's dad is perfect. It's perfect. There are a lot of creative details with Jon Watts. For example, the scene where he figures out that he is Spider-Man with the, you know, the lights changing green, where he figures it out. There's a lot of creative details like that within this trilogy, but I just think on the whole, there's some of the flattest looking Spider-Man movies out there, especially the swinging. The swinging in these movies, I mean, just look at the Brand New Day trailers and compare it to the entire Home trilogy, and it's night and day. It's very much night and day. I think that's just the main thing I have with the Home trilogy, is it's very... It doesn't feel like Spider-Man a lot of the times. Like, the story beats are sort of off as well. Like, this movie doesn't have Uncle Ben's death, for example, which is a big thing that people were talking about back in the day. And the thing is, a lot of people liked it back in the day, because a lot of people were getting sick and tired of seeing the same origin story over and over and over again. But I think once you sit on it with a lot of time, you start to realize that it's a big character trait of Spider-Man. It's one of the biggest things about him. It's a character defining moment, and to see it absent doesn't really make sense, you know? So, and the thing with the Home trilogy as well, it feels like the entire Home trilogy is essentially his origin story, whereas in other movies, that's the first movie. You know, it feels like we spend 3 movies with him in school, with him going through his terrible losses and learning all of his lessons to be Spider-Man. But it takes an entire trilogy as opposed to it being one film, which is my biggest issue. It just feels like his origin is drawn out way longer than it needs to be. Number 7 on my list, and this very much could change in the next few weeks or so, because I only rewatched this, I think, a day or 2 ago, and that is Into the Spider-Verse. And I think a lot of people just clicked off this video. Please stay, because I'm going to piss you off even more. I had this lower. I had this below Homecoming before watching this movie, but it's creeped up a place, and I can see it moving up in the future. So this movie came out in 2018, and I didn't watch it straight away. I watched it, I think, before No Way Home came out. So I want to say like 2020, 2021. And when I first watched it, I was going into it expecting huge things. Everybody was saying this is the best Spider-Man movie to ever release. And honestly, I didn't see it. I didn't hate the movie. There was nothing I could point out that was necessarily wrong with it, but it didn't strike a chord with me. And that's really the only way I can describe a lot of this. It just didn't hit, you know? And I rewatched it again, I think a year or two after No Way Home came out. I had very much the same feeling, but after Across the Spider-Verse came out, and I've rewatched that a good few times since 2023, and then I rewatched Into the Spider-Verse the other day, I think I finally get it. I can see why people say that this is the best Spider-Man movie to come out. For me personally, there's a lot of nostalgia getting in the way, so that's why it's so low on the list. However, I do get it. I think this is an incredible Spider-Man movie. The attention to detail between this movie and Across the Spider-Verse, and eventually Beyond the Spider-Verse, is second to none. The amount of connections and Easter eggs and details about these movies, especially when you rewatch. So if you watch Into the Spider-Verse and then Across the Spider-Verse, and then you go back and rewatch Into the Spider-Verse, there are so many things that you will notice about this movie that connect essentially the entire trilogy. It's fucking incredible. Like, it's second to none. I know a lot of weird internet people feel a certain type of way about Miles, but I think he's a fantastic Spider-Man. He's so good, and especially in this trilogy as well. Obviously, I prefer Across the Spider-Verse because it's higher on the list. I'm sure you figured that out. But Into the Spider-Verse is a great introduction to Miles. And obviously as well, we have Miles in the Spider-Man games. I do like his Spider-Man standalone title quite a lot. I do feel it's unfortunate that his involvement in Spider-Man 2 was very little. But I cannot wait to see the end of this trilogy. I genuinely think I'm more excited for Beyond the Spider-Verse than Brand New Day, which comes out in like 2 days. I remember when I was rewatching this movie the other day, I got to the What's Up Danger scene. And I remember just sitting there like Danny DeVito, just like, I get it. I was like, I finally get it. After like 6 years of kind of standing against this movie and being like, I don't see what people see in it. That scene happened and I was like, whoa, holy shit. Like, I was getting goosebumps. I was getting excited. Like, it's fucking incredible. It's so good. I cannot describe that feeling. In 7th place, we have The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, this movie is very interesting to me because I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. Very much like Into the Spider-Verse, but this is where we start to get into the opinion-based stuff. Because I think a lot of people would say the two Amazing Spider-Man movies would go a lot lower. And I respect your opinion, but for me personally, I grew up watching these movies when they came out, so I have a lot of nostalgia tied to these. The Amazing Spider-Man is the one of the two that I don't think actually does anything inherently wrong. There's nothing bad about the movie, but the highs of this movie are not as high as some of the ones higher up on this list. I think the pacing of this movie as well is a little weird. Like, it starts, like, pretty much 2/3 of the movie is very slow. It's very character focused, and I love that about movies. Like, I love the character studies, especially of Spider-Man, because he's the best character of all time. I don't care. But the formula of a Spider-Man movie typically is you start off with the introductions, you introduce Peter Parker, his love interest, his aunt and uncle, and then you have some kind of conflict, you know, Uncle Ben dying, let's say, and then you have him turning into Spider-Man, you have his big action set piece, and then he kind of comes away, it's a lot slower again, and then you have the finale. This movie is kind of weird. Like, it's pretty much all the way throughout the movie, very slow, very character-based, character-driven, until the end, and it sort of snowballs. Like, it gets really, really quick. A lot of things kind of happen back-to-back. Like, a lot of the action set pieces with the Lizard are just straight up back-to-back, and it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It just gives me a weird feeling when watching the movie. But other than that, I think it's a really great Spider-Man movie. I mean, Andrew Garfield, I hate to say it, but I think he's my favorite Spider-Man. After No Way Home and after sitting on it for so many years, I love the way he moves, he talks. Like, he is Peter Parker. And I grew up watching, I grew up watching all of these, but Tobey Maguire was always my GOAT. He was my number one. But I think as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate Andrews a lot more, and I fucking adore him. I think he's He is the embodiment of Spider-Man, and it's not even close. And this is where the tier list starts to get really difficult for me, because next up we have Amazing Spider-Man 2. This is the worst of the best of the Spider-Man movies. I think the next 6 are the ones that are very kind of interchangeable for me, but I think this one is pretty solid as the bottom of the best. I think the highs of Amazing Spider-Man 2 are some of the highest highs in the Spider-Man franchise, and it's not even close. The music in this film is probably the best Spider-Man soundtrack with Hans Zimmer we've ever heard. I think Electro is very well done, and I really enjoy Jamie Foxx's portrayal in this movie.
Now it's time for me to light my candle.
The swinging scenes in this movie are the best we've ever seen. Maybe that'll change when Brand New Day comes along. It's looking like it might. But so far, Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, sorry, is the gold standard for Spider-Man swinging scenes. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's chemistry, obviously, is incredible. So the relationship side of the film is fantastic. Pretty much everything about this movie is perfect. Apart from anything to do with Oscorp and the Sinister Six kind of setup in the movie and a lot of the bullshit they put in. If it wasn't for that, this could be a top 3 Spider-Man movie. I'm so certain of it. Because every time I watch this movie, I get such a special feeling that I cannot describe. And then Dane DeHaan comes on the screen and I just want to stop watching, because I'm not a huge fan of his portrayal of Harry Osborn. I think the script probably did a lot to fight against that. But yeah, I just don't... I just don't like it. I don't like Oscorp in this movie. I think the plotline is pretty boring. The Osborn curse, obviously, as well. And one more thing about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think this portrayal of Aunt May could be my favourite. Now, the Tobey Maguire version of Aunt May will always be the best. But there's just something about her scenes in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 that are so special. And it makes it even more special knowing that the actress who played Aunt May in this movie didn't even want to do these movies and didn't enjoy making them. But she puts such a performance into these films, especially in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. She's brilliant in 1, but in the second movie, she acts her fucking heart out, man, and I love it so much. My favourite scene with her by far is when they're in Peter's room and they are talking about what happened with Peter's parents, which I didn't even talk about, actually. Oh my god, the whole parent plot. I knew there was something I was forgetting about. The whole parent plot line, it was just unnecessary. It dragged down the movie. Anytime that Oscorp or Harry Osborn or the parent plot line happens in this movie, it drags it down. That's why it's kind of low. But that one scene in the film is beautiful. I love it so much. It could be my favorite scene in the movie. I could never choose between this version of Aunt May and the Tobey Maguire version, but I love them both for their different reasons. I will say as well, something I forgot to mention, the version of Flash in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 is, I think, the best version. I mean, in the Tobey Maguire movie, he's very much just a cartoonish high school bully. And in the Home trilogy, don't even get me fucking started, man. He's just such a joke. Another thing marking down the Tom Holland movies, by the way, in terms of the Spider-Man DNA, Flash Thompson in those movies is just such a meme. I actually hate his character. I think he's such a shit portrayal of Flash Thompson. I don't mind Rhino as sort of like a B-tier villain. I think that's quite funny. It's like a little gag throughout the entire film and even through No Way Home. But if Sony didn't have such a hard-on for trying to make their own MCU with Spider-Man, which they've still been trying to do with all the Spider-Man villains that just flopped, then they would have had a fantastic top-tier Spider-Man movie on their hands, but they had to get their grubby little mitts in and ruin it. And it's such a shame to see Andrew Garfield done so dirty, because I think he is the best actor that has portrayed Spider-Man. Moving into the top 5 territory now, in 5th place, we have No Way Home. This movie I had as my #1 Spider-Man movie when it initially came out, and it's complicated because a lot of people say that over time this gets worse and worse, and a lot of people even go ahead and say this is a bad Spider-Man movie just with nostalgia bait. I resent that idea. No Way Home, in my opinion, is a character study of Spider-Man. The plot kind of comes second, I will concede on that, but what I love so much about No Way Home is the care and the passion for giving us what Spider-Man is supposed to be. 3 times in this film. The plot of No Way Home is pretty lackluster, I will concede. I mean, it starts off pretty well. You have Mysterio revealing Spider-Man's identity to the world. You have the fallout of that. Obviously, them not getting into MIT. And he goes to Doctor Strange with the idea to do this spell. And I think this is where the plot starts to fall apart. Because there's a lot of questions that you could ask here, such as, is there anybody you want to remember you as Spider-Man? Or, you know, Tom could ask that, you know, can I have these people remember that I'm Spider-Man? But they don't do any of this. There's so many questions that you should be asking going into this, considering the fact that you're about to brainwash the world. But that all falls apart because he could have just spoken to admissions, which is something that Doctor Strange says. You could have very much just said, oh, can you reconsider this because we're good people, and they might have listened. But if not, then fair enough, go to the wizard. There are a lot of logic issues with this scene. I think this is where a lot of people have the issues with the plot, is the fact that a lot of it doesn't really make sense for a grown man who should be very wise as a wizard. And obviously Peter Parker is a kid, so you could sort of excuse that. But somebody should have questioned something. Like Wong even could have thrown in a line saying, oh, have you spoken to them about reconsidering? Then Tom would have gone, no, actually, and just left, and none of this would have happened. You know, Aunt May would still be alive. Once that happens, the plot, I feel like, kind of takes a back seat, because then it becomes about sending the villains home, and obviously the other Spider-Men as well. And it's not much of a plot, really. Like, the villains come, they're causing trouble, they need to go back because, you know, multiversal threat or whatever. And then it becomes about curing them, and then once they're cured, it's about everyone forgetting who Peter Parker is. There's not much of a plot. It's very simplistic, but again, the beauty of this movie is in the character study. It elevates Tom Holland's Spider-Man to be who he's got to be for Brand New Day, essentially fixing all the problems that I spoke about in Homecoming and Far From Home. And it does that by bringing back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in the best way I could have possibly asked for. It's perfect here. The scenes themselves are brilliant, but the way these two act in this movie, all the tiny attention to details about the way they move, the way they talk, their stories after their respective movies, just everything is perfect. Everything is done to a T. No notes whatsoever from me. It's such a joy to watch. And I will die on the hill that Spider-Man No Way Home currently is and always will be the best cinema experience I've ever had in my life, and it will never change. And that was kind of the point, you know. No Way Home was supposed to be the Spider-Man Endgame, and it was supposed to be a cinema event. And you might feel a certain type of way about the movie now, but I will always cherish that experience for the rest of my life, and that's what matters to me. Another nitpick with No Way Home's plot is the idea of the villains dying fighting Spider-Man. There's a lot of people who are pedantic would kind of pick up on this and say, how would that work when they go back, you know? Or at what point did they come into the universe? At what point do they go back in? The whole idea of the movie is curing these villains and giving them a second chance. But talking about Green Goblin, for example, they've gone through this entire trouble of curing him. And a lot of people theorized that he came into the universe just before he got pierced by the glider. So if he's gone back to that exact time, cured, he's going to die anyway. It's the same with Doc Ock. I mean, they've gone ahead and cured him. Even though in Spider-Man 2, he kind of cured himself, I guess. And then he would have sacrificed him anyway, so he's going to die. Sandman doesn't die. The Lizard, as far as we know, doesn't die either. And then Electro, once again, he's going to be cured and killed immediately, because they literally said that he comes into the universe before his death in Spider-Man 2, like right before. In the 4th spot, we have Spider-Man. Just Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire's original movie. This is my least favourite of the trilogy, but it's still a fantastic movie. The Green Goblin, somehow he outperformed his performance here in No Way Home. He's just such a brilliant actor. He's probably my favourite Spider-Man villain actor. Maybe not my favourite Spider-Man villain, but in terms of the actor himself, he's just such a joy to watch. This movie is very cheesy and corny. I fucking love it. I don't care. Once again, I've been watching this movie for the whole 24 years of my life, and it never gets old. None of the Tobey Maguire movies get old. Some of the swinging scenes don't look the best. The whole third act on like the bridge is very dark and you can't see half of it. I don't care though. This is the best Spider-Man origin movie that's ever been made, and to be honest, I don't think it'll ever be topped, but I'm happy to be proven wrong in the future. Now we get into the top 3 Spider-Man movies. In third place, we have Spider-Man 3. Now I know a lot of people are punching the air because they hate Spider-Man 3. This was the Tobey Maguire movie that I rewatched the most as a kid. I've watched this movie hundreds, maybe even thousands of times in my life. I would just run it back to back to back. And there are issues with this movie. The juggling of villains, you know, the amnesia plotline, Sandman conveniently being killed off. All of these things are big issues with the film. But do you really think that, like, 5-year-old me, or however old I was back then, do you really think I was thinking about that? I fucking loved Venom. I love Spider-Man. I liked Sandman as well, but like the main thing that I loved about this movie was Spider-Man and Venom, and I thought that they were awesome as a kid. That's all that mattered, you know. This movie I just adored growing up. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate the movie even more though, and that is more so in line with Sandman. So as a kid, my favorite villain was Venom, just because he was cool. But as I've grown up, I've come to realize that Sandman is arguably the best villain in the Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire trilogy. If it wasn't for the fact that he was just conveniently killed off for a moment, and also lost a lot of screen time to Venom and Harry Osborn as well, then he would have been the best. I'm so certain of it. He's the one villain in the entire Tobey Maguire trilogy, apart from Harry Osborn, that gets redeemed and actually doesn't die fighting Spider-Man. And that's what I've come to appreciate about this movie so much growing up, is the idea of redemption and forgiveness. It's the driving factor of the film, actually, because you have Venom, who is somebody who cannot forgive and cannot be redeemed. He ends up dying. You have Harry Osborn, who gives his life for his friend because he's forgiven Peter, Spider-Man. And then you have Spider-Man himself forgiving Sandman for killing Uncle Ben. And you also have MJ forgiving Peter as well. You also have the sub-theme of substance abuse in this film as well, and the sort of addiction side of it with the black suit. And that's what kind of leads Peter, alongside him just generally being an arsehole at the start of the movie, that leads him to, you know, hitting MJ and also attacking Harry as well. And the idea that they can still forgive him despite the terrible things he's done, and the fact that he can forgive Sandman despite him killing Uncle Ben, and the fact that Eddie Brock can't forgive Peter because he took his job from him, it's quite funny. But that's the whole idea of the film, is that forgiveness is so important and redemption is possible even for people who have done some of the worst things imaginable. And that's why I love this film. If you want to sit there with your finger up and your glasses pushed up against the bridge of your nose and say, oh, actually, the issues with this movie are that... I don't fucking care. I don't care. The things that this film does well are so fantastically done that I don't give a fuck about the rest of the film. And you might point to the moment as well where Tobey Maguire's doing his little fucking corny dance with the black suit. It's funny. Have some fun in your life. It's funny as fuck. It's such a funny film. Like, it's got some of the best memes out there, this movie. I think if you're going into this film not being such a cynical, sad person, you actually might enjoy it and also be able to see some of the greater themes at play. Now, moving on to the number 2 spot. This actually was a toss-up for me for a long time. I wasn't sure which movie was my favorite out of these two, but I feel pretty comfortable in saying that Across the Spider-Verse is second for me. And it's surprising. I have to say it's very surprising because I have very strong nostalgia for the Tobey Maguire movies and even the Andrew Garfield movies. And a lot of that nostalgia is played out in No Way Home. So there are a lot of movies that could have been second place. But Across the Spider-Verse, bearing in mind as well that going into Across the Spider-Verse, I wasn't a huge fan of Into the Spider-Verse. But I remember when this film ended in cinemas and I was watching it, and the ending is unbelievably good. I know some people are salty about the fact that Across and Beyond are sort of a two-parter, but I think this movie ends in such a way where It is a two-parter technically, but it doesn't feel like it. It still has a satisfying conclusion, you know? God, where do I even start with this film? It's fantastic. It's so fucking good. I have to say that Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman or Gwen Stacy, whatever you want to call her in these two movies, is one of my favorite Spider-Man characters of all time. Once again, that's very surprising because for me, she's very new in these movies. Like, I've never read a comic book. I've never watched anything with her in. I think she's a relatively fresh character. And I love every scene she's in Across the Spider-Verse. I love especially the fact that it opens with her story, with her dad being the captain as well, and her kind of side of things with the whole ordeal with Miles. I can't put it into words. This film is fucking amazing. And again, the connections between Into and Across, the amount of links that they made between these two films, despite on surface level feeling a bit disconnected. They're not disconnected, but they're not as closely linked as you would think unless you really look into it. It's so brilliant. I can't even put it into words how much I love this film. Once again, Spider-Gwen, absolutely adore her character. Miles as well, I love, and I love their bond in this film. But probably my favorite thing about this film is Miguel O'Hara and the entire Spider-Verse, Spider-Web, canon events, like that whole explanation of how all the Spider-Man's stories are connected. It's so good. I love it. Miguel himself is, I adore his character, and I love Oscar Isaac's acting in this film. He's so fun to watch as this kind of dark, brooding character that takes himself way too seriously, but he also has a bit of like a dry sense of humor and a bit of like a goofy side as well. But you can tell he's pretty much snuffed that side out of him because of his tragic backstory in the movie. And I love the whole idea of the Spider-Verse as well, but I also love at the same time the fact that it is kind of BS coming from Miguel. Like, it's what I love so much about that concept is that it's not them telling us that that is how it works. Because since that movie's come out, everybody's saying, well, that's a lie, you know, that's not how it works. But it's not because the writing of the movie is bad. It's because Miguel's perspective of it is so skewered that he's pushing this as the truth onto Miles and the thousands of other Spider-Men and women. And it's a complete fabrication. I don't know if that was their intention with this movie. I think it was, because the writers of these two films are god tier. I'm hoping it's something that gets picked up on and carried on with Beyond the Spider-Verse. You know, I think the plot of that movie is going to be Miles defying the canon, and it's not going to affect the universe. That's kind of my theory on it. But I love the whole concept of the spider web and all the canon events and everyone being connected. You know, you can't save everyone. Every Spider-Man goes through these different story beats. And that is what kind of highlighted the issues of Tom Holland's movies for me, was when this movie came out and they talk about all the canon events and the things that are supposed to happen in a Spider's story to make him a Spider-Man or woman. And Tom Holland didn't really have a good amount of these, and like a lot of the things were different. I'm sorry, I don't want to hate on Tom Holland because I love him as an actor. I love his Spider-Man movies, and Brand New Day looks really good. But I think it just highlighted what's so good about Spider-Man and what I love about it so much. Obviously, the nostalgia fest and the Easter egg fest in the film with, you know, Spider-Man PS4 in the game and Donald Glover as the Prowler and all the different scenes and connections from all the comics and the movie. It's kind of a No Way Home nostalgia boner, just in a very smaller capacity. It's like a 5-minute scene. Hobie as well, Spider-Punk, I believe it is a highlight of the movie. He's so funny. He's got this like rebellious attitude, but he's still working for the Spider... What's the thing called? Like the Spider community or whatever. He's still working for them, and then when Miles comes along, he kind of takes him under his wing. You know, he defies the Spider people and Miguel specifically to kind of help him out. It's really cool. And again, this is so surprising because going into this film, I watched Into the Spider-Verse. I wasn't the biggest fan. I was questioning a lot of people's opinions that Into the Spider-Verse was the best Spider-Man movie. So I was going into this one thinking that it looked good, but I was not expecting to fall in love with it as much as I did. And for a period of time, this was my #1 Spider-Man movie. The animation style of these two films is the best animation style we've ever seen ever. And that is apparent because a lot of the animation industry takes inspiration from these two films. So to say that it's kind of game-changing is kind of underdoing it. And then number 1, we have Spider-Man 2. Who would have thought, right? I mean, this is the best comic book movie ever made. It's not even close. It's the best Spider-Man movie. Everything about it is perfect. I have no notes, to be honest. I'm not even joking. I literally just sat here for like a minute just thinking about this movie. Not thinking about what to say, just reminisce. I don't know. Like, this film it's special, man. It's really, really special. A lot of this movie is about Peter Parker being kicked down by life, essentially, and him eventually giving up on Spider-Man and still not getting what he wants and then coming back as Spider-Man. It's just Spider-Man. There's no other way to put it. If you want to know what Spider-Man is supposed to be, you have to look at this movie. It's as simple as that. I was talking earlier about the core elements of Spider-Man and the Spider-Man DNA. This film is the best portrayal of Spider-Man, full stop. Second to none. It's the best Spider-Man thing to ever come out of anything. I could rant about this film for ages, to be honest. I want to talk about it more because I feel like I'm not really doing it justice, but what can I say? It's literally perfect. There's nothing else I can say. One thing I will say is I talked about Spider-Man 1 kind of having outdated CGI and some of the scenes not looking as great. Not that it matters that much, like the movie is still fantastic, but there are some scenes where Peter looks like a cartoon character. It's not present in this film. This film came out in 2004. It's 12 years old. I'm sure there are people watching this video that are younger than this film, and it looks like it could have been released today. And again, the visuals aren't the number one most important thing in the film. The most important thing about Spider-Man 2 is the character work and all of that stuff. But to say that this movie isn't a joy to watch with the swinging scenes, the action scenes, everything else to do with the special effects, I don't know how they did it in 2004, you know? It's one of the best looking Spider-Man movies we've ever had. I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is probably the best, but this movie, especially for 2004, it really makes you wonder how they were able to pull it off back then. So there we are. That is my tier list for the Spider-Man movies. Now, once again, this is my opinion-based tier list. This is how I feel about each of these movies. Obviously, this tier list isn't going to be the most popular opinions or whatever, but this is how I feel, right? Now, as promised, we are going to be doing an objective tier list as well. This is still my tier list, don't get me wrong, but this is me looking at the films more harshly and putting my feelings to one side and ranking these movies as the definitive best or worst. So, starting from the bottom, we still have Far From Home. I just don't fuck with this movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like it, but this is the worst Spider-Man movie, without a doubt. Next up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The way that I'm trying to look at this tier list is I'm trying to look at how many things each movie did wrong, but also how well it did the things it did right, which is kind of how you do a tier list, but I just wanted to explain that. It's just got a lot of bullshit in it, really. It does a lot of the good things very well, but Sony sticking their grubby mitts. And oh look, what have we got next? Spider-Man 3, the movie where Avi Arad decided to shoehorn Venom in, which I like the idea of the black suit and the themes that it presents, but Venom was very much shoehorned again by Avi Arad, and it brings this movie down quite a bit. You know, if it just had Sandman and Harry, it would have been a perfect movie, but Venom's involvement, I have to be objective here, it does bring it down. Amazing Spider-Man 1 is next. I don't think this movie does anything particularly wrong, but I just don't think the highs are as high as the movies next. It's as simple as that, really. 6th place, Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie has a couple issues with it, like I talked about before, like some of the directing, visuals, I guess, like just sort of the flatness of it. A lot of the Spider-Man DNA is missing, but it is a pretty good origin story for Spider-Man within the MCU especially. It's a great coming-of-age story for a Spider-Man character. Next up, we have No Way Home in the exact same spot. This is a love letter to Spider-Man fans. It does it beautifully, but there are issues with the plot. It's as simple as that. In 4th place, we have Spider-Man 1, the original. Nothing wrong with this movie, maybe apart from some of the visuals being a bit dated, but other than that, It's a brilliant origin story for Spider-Man, the best they've ever been. In third place, Into the Spider-Verse. I think this is just slightly edged out by Across the Spider-Verse. Some people would think the opposite, but I just love Across the Spider-Verse so much. And number 1, Spider-Man 2. The best comic book movie ever made, the best Spider-Man movie ever made, the best movie. No, that's a bit too far. But that is my objective tier list. I think this is more in line with the general opinion of Spider-Man movies. There are some things which go up, some things that go down, but in general, this is the kind of tier list you would expect to see. And this is what I think in terms of objectively analyzing these movies and ranking these movies. But my opinion-based tier list is how I feel about the movies. Feelings aren't based on logic. Love isn't based on logic. It just is. So that's why I wanted to do 2 separate tier lists. But that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more content like this. I'm going to be reviewing Brand New Day when I watch it. So subscribe to the channel once again if you want to see that review. And leave a comment down below if you want to see more content like this in the future. Do you want to see me rank the Star Wars franchise? Any other movies you want to see? I'm more than happy to do it. Yeah, thank you for watching.